I'm going to always talk about oppression, freedom, justice, equality, respect for human people, for human personality, as Dr. King would put it.
Regarding Black history, Mahmoud is our guru in our community.
I'm a part of a legacy, and that is the legacy of the struggle for human dignity, for freedom, justice, and equality. History of the struggle for freedom has been born.
Since 1963, Dr. Mahmoud El-Kati has blessed Minnesota's Twin Cities with his vast knowledge of Black history and the Black experience in the United States. Featuring Dr. Josie Johnson and Dr. El-Kati himself, this mini-doc takes a glimpse at the retired college professor, high school teacher, author, columnist, activist, father, and deeply revered Black scholarly giant.
What are you going to do with this can you keep kicking down the road? And the can is whether or not Black people can live in America, not doing spectacular feats, not being Michael Jordan, because they're human beings, because they were born, because they're in the world. The history of Black people is as much the history of America as it is white people. There's no white America. That's an ideological lie. It couldn't be because there were already people of color here.
My very dear, wonderful friend, Mahmoud El-Kati, and his family moved here to St. Paul.
I've been here most of my life, over 50 years. I've moved here from Ohio, where I spent 7 years of my life in school and where some of my relatives lived, whom I lived with. I was in Cleveland, where I got married. My former wife, she's the reason why I'm out here. And we had children, 3.
His youngest child is my godchild, and I know his boys, of course, Stokely and Eric, both of whom I've known all their life. And Mahmoud's wife, TT, his original wife, and TT and Mahmoud and my husband, Charles, and the kids all developed a very close friendship. And I've been close to Mahmoud since then. We've done many things together. I don't know what we would do without him in our society. From the days of teaching in North High School, classes of Black history early on, giving our children a sense of pride in who they are, and he's been doing that all his life.
Well, if I had to define myself, I would certainly put myself in the realm of education. That's what I've been trying to do. I think, according to W.B. Du Bois, the chief aim of education is to create a thinking human being. Education, I think, has to do with a kind of selflessness, conscious. You got to make yourself do it, I think I'm of that temperament.
There are a lot of people in our society who make significant contributions. Mahmoud just happens to be one of our outstanding, unusual, timeless historians. Not only his enthusiasm about us, but the depth of what he knows and his unselfish willingness to give us his time and share what he knows without you ever feeling that he's imposing or forcing. He has the nuances of who we are that encourages our young people to learn about who they are. Mahmoud not only knows the history, he's a storyteller. He can make our history real, alive, relevant. And he does that. You can wake Mahmoud up at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. He can start a lecture at that hour, giving you information about our people, their culture, their history, their intent, the contributions that Black people have made. He always has information that is relevant and information that is significant to the understanding of a people. So he teaches and has taught all his life.
Welcome to Reflections and Connections with host Professor Mahmoud El-Kati.
The lesson for this evening is on the Reconstruction period. There were over 200,000 black soldiers in that war. I won't mention the Navy. Over 200,000. One of them was one of my great-grandfathers. The leaders of this country, the controllers of the institution of life, the power brokers, the big guys who run everything, have no respect for African people. I mean, slave-descended people. Yes, that's what we are. America is fraught with contradictions. That's what some people are trying to confront that. You know, the contradiction between the truth and the lie. You know, some people want the truth, some people want the lie, and they clash.
Young people, old people, all, they want to know. They want to know our history. They want to know the kinds of things that we have been able to do to survive in a society that has been so hostile and so abusive to us as a people. Mahmoud is able to tell that story without anger and without passing on hostility for another group. He is the walking history of us as a people. Knowledge, deep sense of knowledge. And our young people appreciate that because most systems don't teach us who we are.
I think the most precious thing about my life, besides, you know, being able to help somebody raise 3 children as a black man, that's my major achievement right there. Boom, you know. But besides that, is trying to communicate with young people in this educational process. What kind of student was I? I was good and bad. I skipped a grade in elementary school because I faked them out. They thought I was smart until I got in higher grades, you know. I faked them out, you know. And on Easter Sunday, you know, where they have the programs for children, you know, I would say something like, "What are you looking at me so hard for? I didn't come to stay. I just came to tell you the day was Easter Day." And, you know, say 2 or 3 things, and people would go crazy. Because you're 6 years old, 7 years old, and everything. When I got to high school, I used to read Joel A. Rogers, a great black historian, you know, W.B. Du Bois, even Martin Luther King's mentor, Benjamin Mays, who was the president of Morehouse. And they all had columns in the black newspapers. I ripped in paragraphs of what they wrote. We used to have recitation in school back then where you get up and recite some wisdom or something. And I had the class fooled that, you know, that I knew something. You know, I would remember, you know, I could memorize, you know, a good paragraph and get up and say these things. So Dr. Mays would say something, Du Bois would say, "Believe in life," you know. They thought I made that up. So, but I got away with that was great, you know, that kind of learning. But I didn't know what it would add up to. I think I've always been around people who cared about questions that I didn't understand, like social justice and freedom, and I've always cared. I never had an epiphany about black people, about, oh, now's the time to struggle and so forth. That's always been there. One of the responsibles for that is my grandmother. She was an avid newspaper reader of the black press. I don't know the world without the Pittsburgh Courier, the Chicago Defender, the New York Amsterdam News, the Baltimore Afro-American. I could name them all of them at one time or another. I had been exposed to any number of exceptional black people with great voices for justice and freedom and equality. And so I've always been around something like that, people like that. So this thing is kind of organic. It isn't something that I decided one day, oh, I'm gonna, black people are oppressed or something. I knew that. Any black person, I think, in my age group, and that's the person who's reached 80, anybody has this experience, so I'm not unique. But the two times that I can remember from a very young child, in Savannah, Georgia is where I was born. I left there when I was very young. It's crazy, and the terrifying teeth of segregation, there are instances where black and white people interpersonally got along. That's true. My grandmother had white friends. It's like, like an underground friendship, you know what I mean? They couldn't ride on the bus, together, but they could have laugh and joke and eat and that kind of stuff. So that was there, I knew that. But when I got this job at 9 years old, you said, well, how could you, see, that's a legacy of slavery. Children went to work when they were quarter hands, like 7 years old, and then half hands, and then 3/4 hands, and then they were units of labor, and it's a carryover from the past. So my mother's friend had a shoe shop, and she got me a job there, and was located in a white poor community right next to us. I used to deliver shoes, also being taught to repair shoes. Yeah, 9 years old. And I was walking down the street one making a delivery, and here is. Now, I claim that the word never registered with me until this time. A woman encouraged her 4-year-old child, and look, I was only 9, as I was passing by their porch. She had the little girl come off the porch and was coaxing her to say, and the little girl's looking, she said, just say it, just say it. And as we collided, she ran and she looked up at me and was saying, all the way to the end of the sidewalk. And that terrified me. I can't explain why. I can't explain. But my heart started, I remember my heart, I discovered I had a heart. Boom, 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 boom. To the end of the block. Same summer, I was walking down Tatnall Street, it doesn't mean anything to you, but down the street, and a boy about 14 or 15 years old was sitting on the bench, and I passed him as close as I am to you. And there was a foot right there, I'll never forget that, a brick right there. It could have been serious. It just broke the skin. He hit me with a brick, and I turned around innocently. What did you hit me for? And he said, just matter of fact, because you're I'll never forget that. Those are symptoms of one thing, and that's a racial ideology, which means white over blacks, which means whites count, blacks don't. That's just real. This is one of the cruelest systems that any human being's ever created, to make a human being think that he's not a human being, that he's something else, some kind of animal, this is what has been made, the stereotypes of black people. I mean, you can't find the end of the road. Every generation there's a new stereotype. Dr. John Henry Clark was right. All history, John Clark said, is a current event. I want you to unpack that. In their peculiar way, they help conscientize me to what I'm talking about now, which I call the problem in America, and only a lesser problem, but it's a major problem in the world, and that is what I have reduced to call, and other people are doing it too, white supremacy. Birmingham, Alabama in 1908, 8 black men were paraded before 10,000 white people who came to watch them get burned alive. That's the deep thing. 10,000 people, men lifting their children to their shoulders so they could see. Do you know what that's done to the minds of white people? It's done, about violence is callous. How can you negotiate something to keep these people from killing you? You know, because that's ultimately what white supremacy means. It means death to black people, to Native Americans. That's already been practiced. Or to anybody else is too different. That's what it ultimately means. That's all it could mean, because it already has happened and is happening. The concept of find another way to define who people are, and I say it's culture and history, rather than race, because you can't, if you say white people and you try to scientificate it, there's not going to be white people. There's going to be Irish, there's going to be Germans, there's going to be Anglos and Saxons, and then they became one people. They used to fight one another, and they jumped on the Welsh and beat them up. I'm trying to be crude as I can about this. Jumped on the Scots, that's still going on. Brexit has something to do with that. Scots are not English. They didn't speak English. They spoke Gaelic. What I learned about history as history is that it's really underappreciated. That's it. Now, I don't count what I call history as what you and I were taught in the public school system or in private or even parochial. It's all white supremacist history, all of it. And I've taught in all these. The teachers may be nice people, and I know lots of teachers who are nice, good people, and they're white people and so forth. And they're kind Indians and Mexicans and love dogs and all of that. But they promote white supremacy. As long as those textbooks, if they don't challenge them, do you see other people other than white people in this republic? You know, don't you see these people? Some of them got through the cracks, we don't know how. Became very visible. How is it that you can salute all these black celebrities and not recognize the people that produce them? Until we get to this point where we can acknowledge that people are very much alike because they're people, and they're different because they're people. That's what humanity is. It's hard to talk about this now, but I'm way beyond what I've not always been this way, what we call race. I'm not post-racial, like it's trans. You understand? It's in the world. But I'm conscious of the fact that all the crimes have been committed in the name of race, you know, like in the name of white supremacy or whatever it is, you know. I'm talking about a new nirvana or whatever. Dr. King's beloved community. His beloved community is a community in which people, all people, different, will learn to live together without having to live alike. We're not there yet. You don't have the words, you don't have the vocabulary, you don't have the experience, you don't know, you don't have the consciousness. But that's what it's gotta be better than this. This can't be the end of the human experience in the evolution. Human beings can live together without having to live alike. How do we know this? Because it's happened time and again throughout human history. Not on this stage, not on this level. There hadn't always been 8 billion people in the world. Everybody on this earth wants to be respected. Not because they did anything great and gonna do anything, because they're human beings. That's it. And the black people's struggle is a struggle for human rights, not simple civil rights. Malcolm was right. Civil rights means your rights can be confined to the borders of a country in which you live. Human rights transcend it. That's what I say about race. It transcends that. The fact that I'm a human being with a beating heart and living affections is enough. I want to go past affirmative action and this and cultural this. You know, I was a part of the early stages of what they call pluralism, or multiculturalism and so forth. I was in one of the earliest programs of that, promoted that, because the way I thought differently. I think it's going to be good, you know, bring people together, and organically they will change from interaction and talking and learning and so forth. That didn't happen. They politicized into another category of people. You know, like we say multicultural today, it doesn't mean black people even in it. You know, that's politics. That's manipulation. That's how you divvy up the money and so forth. Don't even there wouldn't be any multiculturalism if there weren't for the civil rights movement. There wouldn't be such a thing. You wouldn't see all these images on television of all, not just black people, but all other people, and it should be that way. So the next time you see Mahmoud, don't just, on the other side of the street, walk and say, oh no, Mahmoud, let me go over and shake his hand. Yeah, shake my hand. Give me a pat on the back. And if you can, let me have a few dollars. Don't just walk away like that.
He won't let you mention it or talk about it or identify anything that would suggest thanking him, praising him. He won't accept it. But we need to do it anyway as a people. We need to thank our historians, our heroes, our people who believe in us without hesitation. He is one of those.
Thanks for listening. Appreciate you. I'll see you next week. Until then, this is Mahmoud El-Kati. Good evening. Like you asked the question, there are people who don't know what you do. Do you understand? I was walking down the street one day and I passed a guy with one of these big boards that artists carry, you see, the artists in the street. And I went into the drugstore. And this fella, I saw him pass, I passed by him, spoke to him. When I came out of the drugstore, he was there waiting on me. He said, I see you a lot in around places, Are you an artist? I said, far from it, man. But I don't know what you do. I just see you. That was a great thing. But that's a great image. What do you do? What do you think you're doing?